Australia looks like paradise, but rangers, lifeguards, and park authorities have posted warning signs across the country for a reason. These are 20 places where the danger is real, and ignoring the signs has already cost lives. 20. Kata Tjuta, Northern Territory. The Valley of the Winds Walk takes hikers deep into 36 giant red domes older than Uluru itself, part of a 7.4-kilometer loop graded as one of the toughest trails in the park. Rangers close the track past Koru Lookout, just 1.1 kilometers in, by 11 a.m. whenever the forecast hits 36 degrees or higher. That is not a suggestion. Heat exhaustion sets in fast out here, and there's a clearing along the trail built specifically as a helicopter landing zone for emergency evacuations. Water taps are spaced far apart, and once temperatures climb, shade disappears almost entirely along the exposed sections. Visitors who ignore the closure signs and push on anyway have needed rescue more than once. The walk is graded difficult for a reason most tourists don't expect. It isn't the rocky terrain that catches people out. It's the sun. 19. Mission Beach, Queensland. Mission Beach is cassowary country, and the birds here are not shy. Wildlife authorities post signs everywhere telling visitors not to approach or feed them, because a fed cassowary quickly becomes a demanding one. These birds stand up to 2 meters tall, can run at 50 kilometers an hour, and deliver a kick strong enough to seriously injure an adult. The danger isn't hypothetical. Cassowaries are one of only 2 bird species on record to have killed a human through direct attack. A 2006 review of documented attacks found that 3 out of every 4 were provoked by people feeding the birds in the first place. Fewer than 1,000 cassowaries remain in this southern population, and vehicle strikes account for more cassowary deaths than anything else, including dog attacks. Every encounter matters for the species, but respect goes both ways. Get too close, and the encounter can turn violent in seconds. 18. Wangi Falls, Litchfield National Park, Northern Territory. Wangi Falls is one of the most photographed swimming holes in the Northern Territory. It's also been closed multiple times after saltwater crocodiles were found inside it. In 2023, a 67-year-old man was attacked while swimming there, and rangers had to euthanize the 8-foot crocodile responsible that same night. The Northern Territory government has admitted the crocodile population has exploded since culling stopped in the 1970s, climbing from around 3,000 animals to an estimated 100,000 across the territory. Wangi Falls sits inside a designated barrier and removal zone, where any crocodile found is trapped on site. Officials have publicly floated the idea of returning to culling altogether. Until then, the swimming hole reopens only after rangers survey it and confirm it's clear, and that confirmation never lasts forever. 17. Coober Pedy, South Australia. Coober Pedy calls itself the opal capital of the world, and the ground here proves it. Miners have dug an estimated 250,000 shafts across the opal fields, some plunging 30 meters deep, many of them unmarked and easy to miss. Signs across town read, "Don't run and don't walk backwards," next to pictures of stick figures falling into holes. Locals aren't exaggerating for effect. In 2024, a man using a specialized UV torch to spot opal at night fell 25 meters down a disused shaft, breaking a leg and dislocating his shoulder. He wasn't found for 22 hours and had to be airlifted to Adelaide once rescuers reached him. It's also illegal to step onto a pegged mining claim without the miner's permission, on top of the physical danger. Most visitors are fine if they stick to the main streets and marked paths. Step off them, even briefly, and the ground itself becomes the threat. 16. Fraser Island, K'gari, Queensland. K'gari, renamed from Fraser Island in 2023, is the largest sand island on Earth and home to one of the last unhybridized dingo populations left in eastern Australia. Rangers explicitly warn against hiking or swimming unsupervised here, especially with children. In 2001, a 9-year-old boy was killed by dingoes on the island, a tragedy that changed how the park manages the animals permanently. Since then, feeding or approaching dingoes has been banned outright, but attacks and bites still happen most years despite the rules. The island's inland lakes and dunes bring a separate risk too, with sudden underwater drop-offs that catch swimmers off guard, far from any dingo. The island's beauty draws hundreds of thousands of visitors annually. Most leave with nothing but photos. A few leave with a very different story. 15. Lake Argyle, Western Australia. Lake Argyle was created in the 1970s by damming the Ord River, and it holds roughly 1,000 times the volume of Sydney Harbor, making it Australia's largest man-made lake by volume. It looks like a swimmer's paradise, with warm water and dramatic red cliffs on every side. But it's also home to a healthy population of saltwater crocodiles, and authorities have issued direct warnings after attacks on swimmers. Tour operators run croc spotting cruises here precisely because the animals are so easy to find, and the lake is also stocked with barramundi that draw fishing tourists. That popularity creates a strange contradiction. The same lake, marketed for its wildlife viewing, is the one authorities warn people not to swim in unsupervised. Locals know which sections are safer than others. Tourists, more often than not, don't find that out until it's too late. 14. Cape Tribulation, Queensland. Cape Tribulation is where the rainforest meets the reef, one of only 2 places on Earth where 2 World Heritage-listed ecosystems touch directly. Captain Cook named the headland in 1770 after his ship, the Endeavour, ran aground on the reef nearby, and the waters haven't gotten any friendlier since. Local guides warn against swimming in these waterways because saltwater crocodiles use the rivers and creek mouths as hunting grounds, with box jellyfish adding a second risk during warmer months. Unlike patrolled beaches further south, this stretch of coast has no stinger nets installed, which means signage is the only real barrier between visitors and the water. The beaches look inviting, but almost none of them are considered safe for casual swimming. Visitors still wade in every year anyway, drawn by the postcard perfect water. The danger here doesn't announce itself until it's already too late to react. 13. Palm Cove Beach, Cairns, Queensland. Palm Cove looks like a classic tropical beach holiday, but between November and May, it becomes stinger season, and one of the deadliest creatures in the ocean becomes nearly impossible to see. The Irukandji jellyfish is roughly the size of a fingernail, almost completely transparent, and its sting can trigger a condition called Irukandji syndrome, first documented by a Cairns-based doctor in the 1950s. Symptoms don't show up right away. Severe back pain, vomiting, breathing trouble, and dangerously high blood pressure can hit anywhere from 5 to 40 minutes after the sting, sometimes serious enough to require hospitalization. Lifeguards have caught the creature on video, drifting past unaware swimmers standing in knee-deep water. Stinger nets help keep out the larger box jellyfish, but Irukandji are small enough to slip straight through the mesh. The advice from lifeguards is simple: wear a stinger suit, or don't go in at all. 12. Little Bay, Sydney, New South Wales. Little Bay is a quiet stretch of coastline in Sydney's eastern suburbs, popular with divers and open-water swimmers. In 2022, it became the site of Sydney's first fatal shark attack since 1963, nearly 6 decades without one. The attack shut down beaches across the eastern suburbs for days, while authorities searched the area. Sydney shark attacks are historically rare, which is exactly why this one made headlines around the world. Locals had swum these waters for decades without serious incident. That changed in a matter of minutes near Buchan Point, just off the main swimming area. The beaches reopened eventually, and swimmers came back. But the sense of safety that once defined this stretch of coast hasn't fully returned. 11. Mary River, Northern Territory. The Mary River wetlands hold one of the highest concentrations of saltwater crocodiles in the Northern Territory, rivaling even Kakadu itself. After a fatal attack, authorities issued a blunt warning. Stay out of the water completely. Unlike more controlled tourist spots, much of the river isn't fenced, patrolled, or marked with regular signage, which makes the danger easy to underestimate. Fishermen and campers are drawn here for the barramundi, one of Australia's most sought-after sport fish. But the same conditions that make fishing good, murky water and quiet banks, are exactly what crocodiles use to their advantage. Locals know to stay well back from the water's edge at all times. Visitors who don't know the region often don't realize the risk until a crocodile is already close. 10. Cid Harbor, Whitsundays, Queensland. In 2018, Cid Harbor became the site of 3 serious shark attacks within 2 months, one of them fatal. The victim, a Melbourne-based medical researcher, died after being bitten while paddleboarding on the first day of a holiday. Government officials moved fast, declaring the harbor a permanent no-swim zone and committing $250,000 toward research into why the attacks happened. Locals had known for years that Cid Harbor was a poor swimming spot, long before it made international news. It's listed as a bad risk area in the region's own sailing almanac. Marine biologists still aren't certain what triggered the sudden spike in shark activity, though some pointed to boaters throwing bait scraps overboard. Despite pressure to install drumlines, none were ever put in place. Cid Harbor remains a popular anchorage for boats passing through the Whitsundays, just not one where anyone is supposed to go in the water. 9. Cahills Crossing, Kakadu National Park, Northern Territory. Cahills Crossing is a narrow causeway over the East Alligator River, named after 1920s buffalo hunter Paddy Cahill, and it holds one of the highest concentrations of saltwater crocodiles anywhere in Australia. Rangers have counted as many as 50 crocodiles in a single 400-meter stretch, with numbers peaking between July and November as the dry season pushes fish upstream. Warning signs line both sides of the crossing, telling people not to enter the water under any circumstances. The consequences have been fatal. A man was killed here after wading across on foot despite the signage, and rangers later had to track down and destroy the crocodile responsible. Viewing platforms let visitors watch the crocodiles gather safely from a distance, waiting for barramundi and mullet carried in by the tide. Cars have been swept off the causeway during high tide too, leaving wrecks visible along the banks as a permanent reminder. Watching from the platform is safe. Getting any closer is not. 8. Simpson Desert Crossing. Crossing the Simpson Desert means driving through more than 1,100 sand dunes across 176,500 square kilometers of remote outback. A permit is required just to enter, and authorities are blunt about the risks. If your vehicle gets stuck, do not leave it to walk for help. That decision has cost lives before. Fuel runs out faster in soft sand, sometimes using 2 to 3 times the normal amount, and mobile coverage disappears for hundreds of kilometers at a stretch. The crossing takes a minimum of 4 days, even for well-prepared travelers, and the desert closes entirely each summer from December to March because daytime temperatures regularly exceed 40 degrees. Every year, prepared travelers complete the crossing safely in convoys with satellite communicators. Every year, a few don't prepare enough, and the desert doesn't forgive that mistake easily. 7. Point Quobba Blowholes, Western Australia. An enormous sign greets visitors here with 3 blunt words: King Waves Kill. The blowholes at Point Quobba, north of Carnarvon, send water shooting up to 20 meters into the air, but the real danger is the swell that powers them. Rogue waves have swept rock fishermen off the ledges here for years, several of them fatally. Memorial plaques now sit near the site, dedicated to people who got too close to the edge. Visitors regularly ignore the sign anyway, walking out onto the rocks for a better photo of the spray, even though a sheltered, genuinely safe lagoon, known locally as the Aquarium, sits just a short walk south. That contrast is what makes Quobba so dangerous. The safe water and the deadly water sit meters apart, and only the sign tells them apart. 6. Salmon Holes, Albany, Western Australia. Locals in Albany have another name for Salmon Holes: Death Rock. Sitting inside Torndurup National Park on one of the roughest stretches of the Southern Ocean, king waves here strike without warning, capable of sweeping a person off the rocks in an instant. Warning signs describe rock fishing at Salmon Holes as genuinely dangerous, and lives have been lost here doing exactly that. The rocks themselves look deceptively stable, drawing fishermen who underestimate how quickly conditions change. A calm sea can produce a monster wave within minutes, with almost no visual warning beforehand, generated by ordinary Southern Ocean swells, combining unpredictably offshore. Tourists are told plainly not to climb onto the slick rock ledges for photos. Most who ignore that advice are simply lucky the wave doesn't come while they're standing there. 5. Horizontal Falls, Western Australia. Horizontal Falls isn't a waterfall at all. It's a tidal surge forcing up to 11 meters of water through two narrow gorges in the Kimberley, creating currents strong enough to flip a boat. Western Australia's own marine safety guidelines state plainly that anyone thrown from a vessel here has a very high chance of drowning, and rescue is unlikely to succeed in time. The turbulence churns the water into a mix of air and foam that can stall an engine and send a boat crashing into the cliff face, and box jellyfish and saltwater crocodiles in the surrounding waters make any rescue attempt even riskier. The danger is taken seriously enough that the West Australian government has announced boat trips through the narrower gap will be banned entirely from 2028. Tour operators still run trips through the calmer, wider gorge under strict safety rules. The tighter, more violent gap is a different level of danger entirely, and soon no one will be allowed through it at all. 4. Guatemala, Royal National Park, New South Wales. Guatemala looks like paradise, a sheltered lagoon, a waterfall, and cliffs perfect for jumping. Officials have posted direct warnings asking people not to jump from the cliffs because so many visitors have been seriously injured or killed doing exactly that. A coroner recommended danger signage here as far back as 1961, after a drowning, and the warnings have never really stopped since. Rock fishing along the nearby coastline carries its own history of tragedy. In 2021, a 24-year-old man was swept off the rocks at nearby Providential Point and pulled from the water in critical condition, one of several similar rescues and recoveries logged at this stretch of coast over the years. The lagoon itself is calm enough for families and children. It's the rocks and the cliffs above it that keep claiming lives. 3. Kakadu National Park, Northern Territory. Kakadu is home to some of the highest concentrations of saltwater crocodiles on the planet, with an estimated 10,000 living within the park out of the Northern Territory's 100,000-strong population. Park authorities are direct about the danger. If there's no warning sign, assume a crocodile is there anyway. These are ambush predators capable of striking in water barely deep enough to cover an ankle. Only a handful of spots, including Gunlam, Meguk, and Jim Jim Falls, are considered safe to swim, and even those are surveyed by rangers before opening each dry season. Crocodiles can move back into a cleared area at any time, which means yesterday's safe swimming hole isn't guaranteed to be safe today. Every visitor is told the same thing before setting foot near the water: never assume, always check. 2. Blackman's Bay, Blowhole, Tasmania. South of Hobart, Blackman's Bay's Blowhole draws visitors with its dramatic sea arch and crashing waves, discovered generations ago by a local man following the sound of his lost dog. It's also claimed multiple lives, including 2 teenagers in back-to-back years, one who fell from the cliffs above and another who died attempting a jump between the rocks below. Council commissioned a formal geotechnical report and public safety risk assessment in 2019 before finally installing a safety fence. Police have said the area can't be fully fenced off given how the coastline is shaped, which leaves much of the danger down to visitors choosing to respect the barriers that do exist. Even in 2026, emergency services were still being called out to rescue swimmers swept toward the blowhole by rip currents. Photos of the arch look spectacular from a distance. Getting close enough for a better shot is where the real risk begins. 1. Kiama Blowhole, New South Wales. Kiama Blowhole draws nearly 900,000 visitors a year to watch water blast up to 25 meters into the air through basalt rock formed 260 million years ago. In 1992, it produced one of the worst tragedies in Australian tourism history. A single freak wave crested the rocks and swept 2 families into the ocean, killing 7 people in an instant. 5 years later, the same site claimed 2 more lives from one of those same families. Council erected fencing and warning signs after 1992, and lifesavers say the currents around the blowhole remain some of the strongest and most dangerous on the entire coast, with rescue attempts considered extremely difficult even for trained crews. The site was first recorded by European explorer George Bass in 1797, though local Aboriginal people had known and named it long before then. Despite everything that's happened, visitors still climb past the barriers for a closer look. The ocean at Kiama has already proven exactly what it's capable of. 20 places, 20 warning signs, every single one of them was put there after someone learned the hard way. The ocean, the Outback, and everything in between don't care how many likes the photo gets. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more beyond belief facts, click on the video appearing on your screen now, and remember to hit the subscribe button.